No one with a serious medical problem would rely on the average person to prescribe treatment. All right, so cool. So if I had a serious medical problem, I'm not going to rely on just an average person to fix it. Similarly, since a good public servant has the interest of the public at heart. I felt like this was out of left field.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to make, I forced myself to make a conclusion, like make a prediction here. And so if no one with a serious medical problem would rely on the average person, what might be true of the one thing that we want to line up here is our support in our conclusion. So what direction do you think that we would go here?
I predicted something along the lines of like, oh, you shouldn't rely on like private interests or like
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, someone with good public servant has the interest of the public at heart. I said like you wouldn't I said like you're not gonna want to like, you don't want to trust someone with like average,
Yeah.
like or like doesn't care about the public.
Yeah.
All right, so what answer? Okay, so A says public servants should not be concerned about the outcome of public opinion surveys. I'm like, okay, we're not jumping what they should be concerned about or not, like the outcome of public. I thought A was pretty easy to cross off. B, the average public servant knows more about what is best for society than the average person does. I actually left this one open, to be honest, when I first went through it. But that doesn't work for this one because we're not doing like a relative comparison in our first sentence. Like we're not saying like, oh, those with a serious medical problem would rely like, you know, like on a better person to prescribe treatment than this other person, which is what B would have to be doing for it to be correct. C says public servants should be more knowledgeable about the public good than they are. I felt like that was going the opposite direction. Like, so, hey, we have these really good public servants, but they need to be even better. D said public servants should base decisions on something other than the average person's recommendation. Yeah. So if we are talking about like a good public servant, they probably want something more than average, right? Because they're good. So I think I wish that this question said since a great, I wish I used the word great instead of good, so that I feel like it would be more easier to parallel serious to great than serious to good. But if someone with a serious medical problem would not rely on an average person, well, then a good public servant person would not rely on someone that is below average.
Oh.
I was between A and E or A and B on this one. I chose D, but like I think I was when I like predicted my answer, I was like, oh, you know, he doesn't care about public opinion, or like this person doesn't care about public opinion, because that's just like, I guess I attributed public opinion to like an average opinion.
This like is a must be true question, but I feel like it's honestly more of like a parallel reasoning question. Because it's more, we're more parallel, like, and so we're saying like, yeah, I feel like if you pick up on that structure, D is the only one that comes close to making sense. But if you don't pick up on that structure, they all sound way wrong. Mohib, did you think they all were wrong? Were you like, they all just sound the same?
No, like there's a few ones that like I crossed off for sure, but like my issue with this question was I just couldn't like, well, I got this right, so like my
process of elimination.
Mine's a skill. Yeah, like so like the problem I had was that I couldn't like I couldn't like, I guess like you know how it says good public servant, or it's like first part where it says serious medical problem, like I correlated that with like I guess public interest, and then the average person, like what is that relate
That's
to?
the part that we have to come up with.
Okay.
So have you seen something like this before where it's kind of like a create your own parallel argument. Like,
I've seen this. There's another, usually there's 15 fill in the blank questions on LRBT2 that you can try, but those ones are more like drawing the conclusion, where this is like parallel. No, I've never seen, like, I don't know of another one like this.
because when we read it, I was like trying to think of a conclusion, like a full conclusion. But like when you said like that parallel structure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I
So
never would have guessed a parallel structure.
and that's where, like, when we don't overly memorize question stems, I mean, we can, this must be true, but when we go back up to this, really paying attention, like, similarly, so we're saying, like, I read this as an analogy, and that's where I was like, what, like, how can we even have an analogy here? But I went and really looking at the structure, which is how I think I got to D, even though I didn't love it.
So like, what are the parallels, I guess? So like there's two examples, right? There's like the medical problem, and then there's like the public servant problem.
Yes, so we're saying no one with a serious medical problem is parallel to, like, the good public servant.
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying, like, hey, if you have a serious medical problem, you want someone above average. So if you are a good public servant, you want someone above average.
I see. Okay. So good public servant is like parallel to like the serious medical problem, right?
Yes. And that's where when I meant, like, I wish it used the word great instead of good here, because I feel like it would be more obvious that that's what your parallel, because I felt like good was kind of mild for a serious medical problem. But that's me being nitpicky. I should just write them in that I have a change to the test. All right. What other questions?